we're here to share information about how the CARES Act can allow you to buy a business for effectively no money out of pocket. After about 6 months of owning that business, we're going to show you how you can actually be ahead with the right kind of setup. So I'm Bob House. I lead the Business for Sale group at CoStar. We operate the leading marketplaces for businesses for sale, BizBuySell and BizQuest and Find a Franchise. So I've been doing this kind of online digital small business thing for quite a while now. Prior to that, I've spent my career working in startups and small companies, and including a stint actually of starting and running a travel business at one point in time. So I've been in the shoes of you entrepreneurs as well in terms of running a business. I'm joined today by Michael Baumann, who is the founder and CEO of YourSBA.com and also an advertising solution partner of ours. And Michael, welcome and thanks for sharing your knowledge and expertise around SBA acquisition financing. Would you please introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yes, hi Bob, thank you, and Brendan, thank you very much. My company, YourSBA.com, operates an online platform called Edge, and we help buyers pre-qualify for SBA loans and find a qualified loan structure for SBA loans as used for business acquisitions. So our platform builds the initial forms and project overview to be reviewed by one of our partner lenders once we have a qualified structure, and our system provides instant feedback to the borrowers on the structure and provides messages that guides them through finding the qualified structure.
Great, thanks Michael. And Michael will be sharing a lot more information about that when we get into this presentation. Our mission is to connect business buyers, sellers, tenants, and brokers in the largest and most active business for sale marketplace. And we do that through this network of sites. What you can find here is 50,000 active listings for sale of businesses for sale. We have over 2.5 million monthly site visits across the network. We've got the largest broker directory online to find a professional intermediary to help you navigate the process. And we also have 300 plus of the leading franchise brands that are looking for entrepreneurs to grow their systems available. So we're part of the CoStar Group, which is the leading provider of commercial real estate information, analytics, and marketplaces. And we have, our most probably familiar brand to people is Apartments.com. You may have seen our national advertising there with Jeff Goldblum. And we also operate some land marketplaces and other commercial real estate spaces. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, I'm going to touch on briefly kind of the current market conditions we're seeing for business buyers and why now can be a really unique opportunity to buy a business. Michael's then going to take over and he's going to get into the overall benefits of SBA loans, kind of practical requirements for who's eligible for those loans and the businesses that qualify for them. And then he's going to cover the CARES Act and how that act has a unique benefit now to help offset the down payment and why that's driving deals in the marketplace. Finally, it'll come back to me and I'll just give you some tips for how to find the right business for you. And after that, we will end and answer some questions at the end that have come in the earlier session. So, opportunities in today's small business market. Why should you consider buying a business during COVID-19? Well, let's start with the backdrop. We had historically a very strong period running up until March of market activity, multiple years of increasing deal flow, of more businesses being sold. This was driven by a large and retiring baby boomer population needing to transfer their businesses, of which there are still many, many millions more out there. Strong business performance driven by the rising revenues and cash flow and profit of these businesses. We capture this information in our quarterly insight report, and we track the trends over time of what's happening to average or median cash flow, median revenue, multiples, that kind of thing. And everything was on kind of an uptick for a 4-year period plus coming into March. Then, of course, the world changed and shelter in place and or many locations that happened, and we definitely saw a slowdown in temporary slowdown in market activity. But it's actually started to rebound, and really this just shows kind of the potential of where the market was at prior to this this blip, and where we hope it returns to following the pandemic. So now really is a golden opportunity for buyers in many aspects. Yes, it's well documented in the media that small businesses in some categories, particularly hospitality, have been hit pretty hard by the shelter orders, and don't want to minimize that impact. But there's lots of emerging areas of opportunity and businesses that are doing really well. And some of the things that are driving the opportunity here are historically low interest rates. This CARES Act stimulus that the SBA loan program has, that is basically free 6 months of principal and interest covered by the SBA. This is not a deferment. This is a gift, if you will, for loans that close before September 27th. And the meat of this presentation is going to cover how to tap into that program for a small business acquisition loan. Again, as I mentioned, there's lots of businesses with growth potential. The current situation has accelerated trends that were already underway. It's certainly highlighted categories that are benefiting from the current situation, so we're going to cover a bit of that as well. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, there are just many owners, many baby boomers who are selling to purchase bigger locations, or may just owners who may have bigger ambitions for bigger opportunities that are buying businesses, and boomers who want to sell now versus try to navigate this post-pandemic period. So we're seeing that already, an increase in sellers coming to the marketplace. So what are some categories that are doing well during this period, or show opportunity kind of as we navigate this kind of period looking forward? Well, obviously, essential retailers are doing well as people are shifting their purchase behaviors. Online delivery are all growing and facing kind of unprecedented demand as people shift their purchase patterns. Obviously, in the medical, healthcare, and cleaning service, waste disposal, laundry, these are hot areas and are doing very well, as well as many manufacturing businesses of essential products and wholesale products are unimpacted by this current situation. Anything in third-party logistics, supply chain, distributors, warehousing, doing very well as the rise in e-commerce is being accelerated in this period. Food producers and distributors are obviously essential, and we're seeing lots of stories in the press about bakeries seeing really good times right now, bicycle shops, in another retail category unrelated to food, but lots of examples of businesses that are growing during this period. Anything takeout or delivery with restaurants, quick serve franchises, pizza, etc. So there's clearly a lot of opportunity still of essential services that are driving the marketplace. So, and we're seeing this also in the numbers. The market is active. Business buyers are actively seeking opportunities. Many are doing so because of this temporary benefit offered by the CARES Act, as well as entrepreneurs are just good at seeking out opportunity. And when there's change, which we're seeing now, there's opportunity. So our traffic has actually increased and now exceeds our pre-COVID levels, which were at an all-time high prior to this period starting in March. There's a lot of dry powder and capital out there ready to invest, both in individuals and private equity groups and strategic buyers, companies looking to grow through acquisition. So market liquidity is not an issue. And so buyers are going to stay active and become more aggressive and to capitalize on this current climate and opportunity. This just shows that reality of what's happened on our network. This is a graph of traffic and leads over the last few months, starting at the beginning of March when we did have all-time high traffic and leads. And we saw a multi-week period there that really started to rebound. It really fell off starting around the week of the 11th, and then it started to rebound by the end of the month, and it's been climbing back. And actually, this only goes through the end of May, but we're now above the period we were seeing in March. So Demand and activity in the marketplace has returned, so lots of buyers searching the opportunity. So with that now, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and he's going to cover the CARES Act and the SBA 7A loan program. Michael?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Brendan. Yeah, the U.S. government, the Congress and the President gave some directions to the Treasury to help stimulate the economy. And one of the main vehicles they're using to stimulate the economy is the SBA program, and specifically the SBA 7A loan program. So thank you. The CARES Act allocated $17 billion to the SBA to pay 6 months of payments, as Bob said earlier. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about SBA loans. SBA loans make it easier for a bank to lend money by providing a government guarantee to the bank for a large portion of the loan. Therefore, this reduces the risk for a bank when making a loan to a small business. So because there is reduced risk, and because the SBA is a highly regulated environment, the loan terms are more favorable with a lower interest rate. Today, the maximum interest rate is 6%. The typical loan term is for 10 years on a business acquisition loan, and there is no prepayment penalty if you choose to pay off the loan prior to 10 years. Most banks and credit unions are authorized SBA lenders. We work with a small group of large banks that are very active in the business acquisition lending space. The business acquisition lending space is the most complicated type of SBA loan, so it's important to be working with a bank that knows how to get these done. I like to call the 7A loan program the Swiss Army knife program of the SBA. It is the most flexible program and is able to be used for a lot of different things. One is buying an existing business. Another is buying out a business partner. Also, a 7A loan can be used for working capital and any combination of these uses, with any other combination of these uses to expand the business by purchasing equipment, hiring employees, and pretty much any other business use. If a small business occupies more than 51% of a commercial building, the SBA 7A loan can even be used to buy the building with a longer loan term, 25 years. And if you're combining a business acquisition with a building purchase, there can be a blended loan term somewhere between 10 and 25 years. So SBA loans have very favorable terms for the borrower. So why would you choose an SBA loan? Well, you can borrow up to $5 million with the 7A loan. As I mentioned on the previous slide, there are lower interest rates than any other loan I know of. So yesterday, the Fed chairman indicated he was not thinking about or even thinking about raising the current Fed rate, and indicated maybe in 2023. So we're looking at a 6% maximum rate as of today. The down payment for a business acquisition loan can be as low as 10% per the SBA rules. And the typical loan term for a business acquisition is 10 years. And there are practical requirements. So we're going to look at the practical borrower requirements, and then the practical business requirements for obtaining an SBA loan. So in this, during the pandemic here, this is not the time for a buyer without some resources to buy a business to get into the game. So I looked back through all of the projects we've been involved, almost all the projects we've been involved with for the past year. I tried to come up with sort of a minimum threshold that we see being approved by banks, and that number is $70,000 cash. And if it's not cash, it needs to be very liquid, such as stocks or property that can be sold, or we do see people buying businesses and selling properties to get that down payment, something like this. This is just not the time to be entering this business acquisition structure if you don't have at least $70,000 available to you. We specialize in loans over $350,000, where we look for at least 10% from the buyer. The lender may ask for more than 10%, but there are ways we can accomplish both. I'll get into that a little bit later. For franchise purposes, plan on 10% down. And if you're looking for a loan of less than $350,000, plan on a 20% down payment minimum. The down payment sources I've put in order of what we see here. The most common source we see is cash. Cash is king, and it is the most common source of down payment. A second comes from retirement funds, such as a 401k. And you can also use equity in your home as a down payment for an SBA loan. You cannot borrow a down payment for an SBA business acquisition loan, but you can use the equity in your home in the form of a home equity line of credit or HELOC as that down payment. We also often see gifts from family and friends, most usually family, to provide the down payment, and we do see that quite often. The credit score, a lot of people ask me this question. Credit score is not technically a factor with SBA loans, but a good credit character and personal credit history is important. So a one-time blip in your credit from a divorce or a medical issue or even trouble that you might have had during the Great Recession, we can get over these, but habitually skipping credit card payments and skipping out on bills is not going to be very good for the borrower when it comes to the bank credit decision. On the business side, the qualified business that you can purchase with an SBA 7A loan, it must be small by SBA standards. And as a general rule, I would say less than 500 employees and less than 25 million in annual revenue. There are exceptions to this, and there is a table available on the SBA website that can go into quite a bit of detail on this, but just plan on 500 employees or less and under 25 million a year. The business must be a for-profit business and not a non-profit entity such as a school as an actual example that we had. And if you're a for-profit school, which we actually had submitted in the last hour, we are able to facilitate a 7A loan for this particular school because it is a for-profit school, but you must be a for-profit business. The business must be based in the United States, and it must have positive cash flow so that the monthly SBA loan payment can be made plus the new owner benefit. So if they need to take a salary, any owner benefit. The business must not have been dramatically impacted by COVID-19, and if so, it must have a strong recovery plan. So I'm seeing, and I've looked back through the transactions since March, I see half of the business that come through our platform having been negatively impacted by COVID-19 and on a recovery path, and half of the businesses have been performing well or even better during the pandemic. So I'm seeing exactly half and half of businesses that have been and have not been affected by the pandemic. And I'm about to show you a real world example of just such a business that we completed in the last 45 days or so. In addition, the business must not derive a majority of its revenue from lending money, and it cannot be a federally prohibited business such as a hemp farm or cannabis related business, and it cannot be in an adult oriented industry. So what does the CARES Act mean for SBA loans? I was getting ahead of myself a little earlier. On March 27th, the CARES Act was signed into law and allocated $17 billion to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, for the purpose of subsidizing SBA loan payments, basically a stimulus to the economy through and using the SBA. The SBA will pay all loan payments directly to the bank, including principal and interest, and you will see that it will also pay fees. These are not the SBA guarantee fees. These are small lender fees for collection of payments, very small fees that the lender adds as if making another sort of payment. So principal plus interest for a period of 6 months, with 6 months forgiven, not deferred, as Bob said, but this is a gift from the SBA. It's being paid by the SBA to the lender for six loan payments or 6 months. And this program is for loans closed between March 27th and September 27th of this year, beginning with the first loan payment or within 30 days, whichever is earliest. Clicking on that slide. Here we go. Okay, so let's look at a real world example. This is an online business completed recently. The business was purchased for $450,000. The total project cost was $500,000. So the business was $450,000. The lender added $30,000 for working capital. Working capital can be used for such things as rebranding, adding touchless payment systems, all sorts of things. $20,000 went to SBA closing costs. The closing costs, including the SBA guarantee fee, which is what funds the SBA loan program, and other miscellaneous fees to close the loan, just like the fees you have when financing a house or a car. The total equity injection for this transaction was $100,000, 10% or $50,000 from the buyer, and the seller agreed to participate in the financing in the form of a seller note on standby for 2 years. The note is only on standby for 2 years, not 10 years in this case. The seller agreed to a $50,000 note with reasonable terms to the buyer. And this $500,000 project cost minus the down payment of $50,000 and minus the seller note of $50,000 leaves us with a $400,000 SBA loan. So another way to review the structure is in the actual table that was created by our platform. It shows the business acquisition of $450,000, the working capital $30,000, the loan closing costs of $6,000. And those costs are things like business valuation, title searches, legal fees, etc. The SBA guarantee fee is here. That entire amount is paid to the SBA by the lender to partially fund the SBA loan program. So to the right is the down payment of $50,000 and the seller note of $50,000. And on the bottom is the loan percentages and the SBA loan of about $400,000 on the right. So how does the CARES Act offset a business acquisition down payment? This online business will realize approximately $116,700 gain over the first 6 months of ownership. The business cash flow is about $180,000 per year. Divide this by 2 to get 6 months of benefit is $90,000. The SBA will make 6 months of payments, which are $4,450 a month, $4,450 a month, directly to the bank for the borrower. This is a $26,700 benefit. There are also costs over this same period. The new owner is paying herself $120,000 per year, which is $60,000 over the first 6 months. And there is the $50,000 cash down payment she just wired to the bank a few months ago, $60,000 salary over 6 months, plus the initial down payment of $50,000 adds up to $110,000 of cost. So over the first 6 months, subtracting these costs from the gain of $116,700, she will net positive about $6,700. So this essentially eliminates her initial down payment outlay. So the SBA stimulus is not going to be around forever. And I have a very conservative timeline here that I did earlier for an article. But if you wish to close your loan before September 27th, you need to find a business, make an offer, have the offer accepted, get approved for financing. The loan needs to be underwritten, and you need to close the loan all before September 27th. September 27th is a Sunday, so realistically, Friday, September 25th. I tell people it takes 45 to 90 days to close the loan. Most lenders say 60 days. If a lender says less than 60 days, be very cautious, as there are a lot of moving parts to a business acquisition loan, lots of documents from the seller, the buyer, bank asks for documents, underwriting, closing, inevitable unforeseen delays in the process because we're all human and things come up. So plan on having at least 60 days to close the loan. So if you take September 27th and back up 60 days, you would get the end of July. So say the third or last week of July is really the last time you can have all of your ducks in order to have this loan closed by September 27th. The lender will work with you as much as possible to get the loan closed within 60 days. Everybody wants to see the loan closed, but just plan on it taking at least 60 days to get the loan closed. So my time is a little conservative here and might need to be adjusted, but if you get started toward the end of July, you should be in good shape. Got to find the business, sign the purchase agreement, get pre-approved for the loan, go through underwriting and closing, and close the loan by September 27th. So how is the CARES Act driving deals? What are we seeing in our platform and with our banks? Remember that owners that have done well with businesses, running small businesses, built them up and have them for sale, they are selling these businesses so they can get the cash to buy bigger businesses. So using the cash they're getting out of this business, it might be selling as a down payment on a bigger business. And they need to close their loan prior to September 27th. So these sellers are motivated to get you moving because they have to close their loan by September 27th as well. And I have found that the negotiations are going a little friendlier and a little faster when all parties are aware that the buyer needs to close the loan by September 27th. So sellers, business brokers, buyers, we all want to take advantage of this 6-month loan payment forgiveness by the SBA. So for example, a liquor store we did in Central California, the bickering back and forth over a few $1,000s in liquor inventory just didn't matter anymore because the buyer needs to get it closed by September 27th. The owners who were close to retirement and really didn't want to deal and don't want to deal with post-COVID-19 requirements and uncertainty are taking advantage of this 6-month payment forgiveness incentive to get the price they were hoping to get before the pandemic, and this incentive is a push over the finish line for them. Thank you, Bob.
Before we turn to Bob, I wanted to interject, Michael, at the end of your presentation there. We had a couple of questions come in from the audience during that time that I was hoping you could address before we shift gears back over to Bob. The first one we got is around the September 27th date that seems to become a target for all of us. With so many other things in the time of COVID-19 changing and moving and kind of always being up in the air, what are the chances that the SBA or Treasury Department could extend this September 27th deadline?
Yeah, Brendan, that is a great question. A wonderful question. I had the same question myself when I was reading through the Treasury Department directives to the SBA. I actually called one of my lenders. I was speaking to both the managing director and the president, two different people. They had just gotten back from an SBA conference in Washington, D.C. I asked them this question, and they said they did not see, I know we all see the PPP loan targets changing and new incentives, new Congress passing new CARES laws, things like that. The CARES Act allocated $17 billion, which is half of the SBA budget, on March 27th, which is exactly halfway through the fiscal year of 2020. So fiscal year 2020 ends on September 30th, and the 6 months of $17 billion will expire on right around the end of the fiscal year. So they don't think, and therefore I don't think, that any additional funds will be allocated to the SBA to create another incentive, and it all kind of fit together within the SBA's fiscal year. So I don't see that happening.
Awesome. And then just the second thing I wanted to bring up before we shift gears is with it being the 27th, with there only being $17 billion, in fact, people ask about, can they use one CARES Act loan on an existing business and then get another loan for another new business acquisition?
Yes, we have several people doing that right now. So if you're a current business owner and you wish to get we're not in the working capital space, but if you wish to get a working capital loan, you can also buy a business at the same time. We have people buying multiple businesses at the same time. We have business owners who are keeping their business, but they're buying another business and they're getting a CARES Act incentive. Any SBA loan, new or existing, that was closed between March 27th and September 27th has 6 months of payment forgiveness.
Great, thanks, Michael.
Great. Well, thank you, Brendan, for those questions, and I'm sure we'll have some more at the end. And thanks, Michael, for that information. Switching gears a little bit now, I just wanted to kind of switch to how do you find the right business and find that business where you can take advantage of this program. So let me see if I can, there we go. So we like to remind people often, and this is a constant education for us at BizBuySell, is the advantages of buying an existing established operating business. There's lots of talk. It's the American dream to be that next entrepreneur that starts something from scratch and builds it into that household name. That's certainly a great path for a lot of people, but it's a riskier path, and a lot of startups don't succeed, as is well documented. On an established and operating business with existing customers and cash flow, you buy something that is safer and more likely to be around 5-10 years from now. Again, the benefits are listed here, but you have established licenses and permits, you've got suppliers who've extended credit to you, you have trained employees, you already have a business plan for growth. It's easier to secure financing for growth. It's just a lot of benefits to it. So we constantly remind people of that. Look at an established business. A lot of the best brands in America didn't start from scratch, but were built by entrepreneurs who took something that was already going and then built it into the brands that we know. In addition to buying established businesses, and we have a lot of independent established businesses on our platform, you can also look at buying a franchise. And there's two flavors here. You could buy a franchise that is already in operation. It is, in a sense, an established operating business. It just happens to be a franchise, and those carry all the same benefits that I highlighted on the previous slide. You can also buy a new franchise, which is these franchisors they grow through finding entrepreneurs who bring capital and expertise to operate their locations, and you can open a new location as they grow their system. And both types can be financed using this SBA program and can tap into the benefit provided by the CARES Act. The advantage of a franchise is obviously it's got brand recognition, it's a proven product or service, the success rates are usually well documented. You may not need to have as much operating experience or particular industry experience because there's ongoing support and training and an operating system and a plan that you can follow during the franchise route as well. You can, at the link at the bottom, you can find the franchise brands that the SBA will basically lend against. They're brands that have kind of met the characteristics that are needed for securing financing. Okay, so how do you search for the right business to buy? You've been thinking about being an entrepreneur and getting into business for yourself. We've seen this, whenever there's change and there's people that are reevaluating their life goals and plans. We see a lot of people turn to business ownership. So if you're just starting out, here are some ideas for you. You can certainly go to online marketplaces such as BizBuySell and BizQuest, and you can search the inventory of businesses there. This is just kind of like we're searching for a home online, where you go to the internet and you look for what homes are out there. You can do the same thing for businesses. On these platforms, we actually have the largest business broker directory online, and business brokers are a great source of finding opportunity. So find the brokers in your area and find the ones that look professional and have like the training and certification noted on their profiles, and you may be surprised that they could steer you towards a business you didn't consider or have a listing that you didn't find that might be a good fit for you. Finally, your network of friends and colleagues are a great source of finding a business. You can certainly use LinkedIn or your personal contacts, your professional colleagues, vendors, but also professional service providers like your accountants, attorneys, and even other business owners can help you find opportunities. So these are the most common ways that people find businesses. Again, if you want to explore our broker directory on BizBuySell, you'll find over 6,000 brokers there, and you can narrow it down to your particular county, and you can read about them and understand what their specializations are. You can see what kind of businesses they have for sale that they tend to specialize in, and just reach out to them and see if you can, if any of their particular listings attract your eye, or they can maybe guide you on things to think about in buying a business and how to value business, and certainly they provide a lot of assistance during the process of handling the flow of documentation and the negotiations, etc. So that's a good resource. But a great place to start is just by doing a search, as I mentioned, and if you come to BizBuySell, you'll find over 50,000 active business opportunities for sale. These span a range of categories, over 150 of them. I actually think it's closer to 180. And you can find everything. We have, retail, service, manufacturing, online, you name it. They range from the tens of thousands to the tens of millions, so all kinds of sizes. But the median sale price, as we report in our quarterly insight report, is around $250,000. You'll find large businesses too. And then again, we have 300 new franchise brands that are looking for entrepreneurs to open new locations around the country. So how do you search? Well, we make it pretty easy. We've got all these filters. You can come in and search by category, location, keywords, price, cash flow, gross sales, all these things. What listings are most recent, and many more. And you can kind of hone your search this way. And so, you might look for businesses that, per Michael's earlier points around profitability, look for businesses with good cash flow. Now, not every listing includes cash flow in their listing, and so they won't show up if you do narrow by cash flow. So you might start there, and then you might expand it to just say, all right, well, show me everything. Most people do include a price, so you could look at from that range as well. But remember, the business needs to be profitable. It needs to be able to service the loan payments and any owner benefit that you need to draw from the business. So, look for the good ones in there. Once you do that, you can actually very easily save that search, and you can create a free account to do that on BizBuySell. Once you've saved that search, anytime you want to go back to access it, it's there for you. You don't have to reset up all the filters. You just run that save search. The nice benefit of those safe searches as well is you can set them up to deliver email alerts to you, so that you'll get an email whenever a new listing comes onto the marketplace that met the criteria of that search. So it's a great way to set up a couple of searches. Maybe you're looking at a couple of different types of businesses or a couple characteristics of businesses. Set up a couple of searches, turn the alerts on, and then you can just be notified every day, either daily or weekly, your choice, on new opportunities coming onto the platform. And then it's a simple matter of going to the listings themselves, looking at the information, and then simply using the contact form on the page to contact the broker or the seller, and they will be in touch with you shortly after you inquire. We also have another resource that may be of interest to buyers. It's our guide to buying a small business. This is written by Ed Pendarvis, who's a longtime business broker in the industry, founder of Sunbelt, and a good friend and a partner of ours. And he lays out very plainly and very easy to read terms the whole process of how you go about buying a small business. This is a free resource. You can find it on our site at this URL that's listed here on the slide. It's PDF format. We do have actual physical books that we stock in local small business development centers around the country. You can ask them if they don't have any, we'll send a new supply to them. And you can always email us at ask@bizbuysell.com. Our team monitors that inbox and answers questions people may have. The last thing I want to leave you with before we turn it back to a couple more questions is our Finance Center. So if you go to our site and if you see the navigation at the top under Tools and Advice, one of the options under that is Finance Center. And here you can come and learn more information about SBA business acquisition loans. And you'll see at the bottom of this page there's additional articles, and we're going to be adding to this. In fact, we discussed adding an FAQ based on this webinar to this section. And so, but there's articles and information here about the benefits of the SBA loans and you know, requirements and the like in the CARES Act. So you can read up more if this topic interests you. You can also get pre-qualified here. So if you use the form on the right there, make sure you found a business that you're ready to buy, that you meet those characteristics that Michael outlined. You've got the $70,000 liquid cash, that the business is a small business under the terms that the SBA will lend against, and then use this form to find out if you pre-qualify. Basically, there's just basic information about yourself, about the project, and you can very quickly get an answer back of whether this will work for you. Again, here's the URL for that, bizbuysell.com/finance-center. With that, we're at the end of our slide content. Again, you can reach out to us at ask@bizbuysell.com. Again, our Finance Center information is there. I'm sure Michael would be happy to answer any questions as well if you reach out directly to him. We're going to probably have some questions now for Michael. Again, want to thank everybody who attended earlier today, and apologies once again for the technical challenges. Hopefully this was a little easier to digest. And with that, Brendan, I will turn it over to you to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Thanks, Bob. We do. We've had well over 100 and some questions, and so I'll try to cherry pick the ones that seem like the most pertinent and came up pretty frequently. Michael, the first one I want to start out with is a question from a few people that said, as a permanent resident, do I qualify for an SBA loan?
Yes, you have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, and you do qualify. Green card holder, permanent resident.
Great. How friendly are lenders and the SBA towards restaurant acquisitions, provided the targeted business is performing well and meets the basic criteria?
Yeah, I was hoping we would get that question today, because we do get a lot of restaurants through the Finance Center, Bob and Brendan. You know, again, the 50-50 is holding true with the restaurants. We're seeing half the restaurants come in that were pretty harmed by COVID-19, and half have been doing just fine. We just closed a restaurant on the Jersey Shore that was partially open during COVID-19. They made some adjustments to the restaurant. It was a very capable buyer. They added delivery. They had a pickup window, outdoor seating. You've just got to be a strong, you know, having owned a restaurant before, run a restaurant. The restaurants we're seeing get approved by lenders have more than one location where they have a good management structure in place. But we do like restaurants. It's just that, you know, it's got to be a strong business with a strong buyer.
Great. People are asking a lot about what are the common required documents needed to obtain this loan?
Yeah, from the buyer side, our system builds a personal financial statement, very simple personal financial statement. We don't ask for social security number or a credit, run a credit score. That is done farther along in an SBA loan than most other types of loans. So you'll be speaking to a bank before any of that is pulled. So basic financial information about yourself. On the business side, we need to see the business tax returns. We become harder on people to get the business tax returns in earlier, as opposed to just talking to a bank. And so our system requests that automatically after you become pre-qualified. And then we want to see the P&L, specifically the profit and loss, the income statement for the business. We want to see it as it's performed during COVID-19. It doesn't have to be perfect during COVID-19, but we just want to see what the business did during COVID-19. And we like to see a business plan if there was a significant impact during COVID-19. We'd like to know what this buyer is planning to do with the business to get it built back up again and profitable.
Great, thanks. And I think we'll just do one more, and then everything else will be included in an FAQ that we make available eventually in the Finance Center, and we'll include in a forthcoming email. But let's just take one more question that I think is always on people's minds: taxes. And the question here is, are there any tax implications associated with the SBA paying your loan? Does that need to be included in the business income?
You know, I really need to defer that to the person's CPA. I'm not a tax professional, but let me substitute your question with one that comes up to us quite often. There are a lot of businesses taking advantage of PPP loans right now, and our banks are participating in the PPP loan program, and we are seeing both sellers, buyers, and business brokers making use of the PPP loan program to the advantage of the sellers and the buyers. So they come together to some agreement of how they're going to handle this this PPP loan, and they're using it to their advantage. And I just wanted to add that little upbeat during COVID-19 answer for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you to everybody for joining us. Once again, if you have any further questions for us, feel free to email us at ask@bizbuysell.com, and you can always visit your SBA and our Finance Center at the link below. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.